Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thrive and Survive Research Hub. I've got my co-host Tineiwo Mazenda with me on this fine afternoon. T, how are you doing today?
Alex, I'm great. I'm great. How are you doing? And welcome to all the listeners.
Feeling pumped, nice and
Yeah,
refreshed. Okay, so today I thought we would talk about a very interesting subject, being leadership. And the question that I would ask you is, throughout your career and throughout your life, who would you say were the best leaders that you ever worked under, and what made them so special?
yeah, sure. Very good question, right? And I think for me in particular, I count myself very lucky in my career that I haven't had any bad leaders, to be honest, in terms of people that manage me directly. But yet again, I have to give myself credit on obviously being intentional about who I follow.
Mm,
So I've never picked a job or anything based on things like money or title or opportunity. I have the strong core belief that when you are picking a job or whatever, especially when you're in your youth, be careful with who you pick because that person ultimately controls your destiny for the next 5 to 10 years, and ultimately also how much knowledge you get access to. So for me, I think the low intention of wanting to make a lot of money really helped me in
mhm,
terms of picking someone that I feel would nurture me and give me knowledge, and in turn, myself work as hard as I can for them has been great. So my first two bosses obviously were Parmalat, still very good, great friends of mine and mentors of mine. I take a lot as well. I had really amazing managers who would put me at the forefront of different tasks and different projects and really stretched me. They would see me for who I am. I would say I could do this, and they would say, we think you can do more. And then obviously, currently my current role, also blessed enough to follow really great leaders who continue to stretch me to a point where I'm discovering parts of myself that I never knew existed. So I think identifying or getting good leaders starts off by looking at things beyond money, especially in business or roles, and looking at their characters and asking yourself, can I mirror what this person is saying? Can I mirror this person's behavior, and grow if I'm to mirror them?
mm.
So yeah, the leadership qualities that I obviously really look up to is firstly humility. So I really enjoy people who lead from the front, but also sometimes lead from behind. The second leadership quality that I really, really adore is leaders who empower, who give everyone the opportunity to fail. Because I think that obviously what makes a leader get a loyal following, right? Because if you don't necessarily grow your followers, then um,
Are you a leader?
exactly,
Yeah.
right? And then last but not least, compassion. I think those three combined allow for you to exercise any other a trait, even tough conversations, purely because you make people feel like they're human. You show that you have a great interest in their growth and development. And overall, by them identifying that they follow you willingly and make your job easier as well.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just, yeah, being a human being. And I think we call it in Africa, we call it Ubuntu, right? Just be a good human being and you can have any conversation you want to have with anyone and it will be taken in the best way you can ever expect.
So the three things there was humility, empowering their followers, and then compassion. Was that the last
Yeah,
one? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a perfect mix of conditions to get the best out of your people. And like I said, when you apply those three, even when you're having tough conversations, it's perceived for the message and nothing else. For me, that has been a great stepping stone with all my leaders. And yeah, I've been given a lot of tough conversations, but it's never destroyed my relationship or my motivation to follow them.
Mm.
And I think great leaders have used that, like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Jesus. Even if you look at some of the most successful South African businessmen today, they apply those principles in their everyday living. Yes, they are harsh and they get straight to the point when things are not going well, but it's taken for the message and not necessarily for anything else around it because they exercise these qualities in their day-to-day interactions with employees.
100%.
And for you, what would you say are your favorite traits in a leader? And do you have any great leaders that you've come across in your career to date?
Yeah, obviously, without going into the specifics of the individuals, because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I had the privilege of working with some individuals who were great leaders in their own right. And I would say that the lucky thing that I had was that there's three leaders that I would identify. One was a guy who was at the same level as me, but who was a leader in spirit, um, less so than in rank. The other one was a leader who was directly above me. And then the last one was a leader who was at the top of the organization, who I had the privilege of working under. So starting with the guy who was at my level, the thing that stood out to me was his ability to lead himself, which I think is a prerequisite for anyone who wants to be in a leadership position. Before you can lead other people, you have to lead yourself. So this guy that I worked with, he always put his best foot forward every day, regardless of how he was feeling. So he set a great example. He he was going through a lot in terms of his personal life and the challenges that he was facing. And despite that, he still found a way to be strong for the team, which was something that I really admired. And it was, like I say, a great example to everyone who worked with him and below him. Then, so yeah, he led himself and he showed a lot of strength in terms of his character. The second thing is the guy who was directly above me, who was my manager. I couldn't praise this guy high enough because, and the way I would say it is after I worked under him, anyone that I worked under after that was a bit of a disappointment because he set the bar so high. And
Yeah,
what made him so special was he had impeccably high standards that he expected of himself, and by extension of that, anyone who worked underneath him. And he looked to you and he saw your potential, and he wouldn't accept anything less than that. So much like what you were saying about your leaders empowered you, this guy was the same for me. He always placed a lot of trust. As soon as he saw a spark of talent or something there, he would throw everything at you. And you just grow so much under a leader like that.
yeah,
Your development as an individual is rapid.
yeah,
Then lastly, the gentleman who was at the top of the pyramid that I had the privilege of working under, I used to call him my audit Yoda because he was so calm regardless of what happened. And one of my favorite quotes is calm is contagious.
yeah,
He set the tone for the team. So it doesn't matter if the building is on fire or whatever, he's calm and he's in control, which makes
yeah,
everybody else feel calm. And then the
yeah,
second thing, which I think is a very important principle, is taking ownership of problems. So because he was the leader at the top, he took responsibility for everything. And by virtue of that, everyone below him took responsibility as much as they could. So there wasn't a culture of no, but this person and this and this and blaming the client and blaming this and that. It was always what can we do to make the situation better?
yeah, yeah.
So
So well said. And I mean, uh, I like how you broke that down, right? Because I think the leader is the leader for a reason, firstly. And then there's a saying that I really love that always says, like, heavy is the head that wears the crown,
yeah, yeah,
and that's the crown of leadership. It comes with a set of responsibilities that uh, if you perceive them wrongly can be a burden, but if you see them correctly, can be a big blessing. And I think the blessing there is empowering others, identifying talent, developing it, having conversations, both good and bad, for the benefit of the overall goal. And then last but not least, making an impact, not only in people's day-to-day jobs, but transcending beyond that into their lives as well. So I think obviously it's very hard to come across leaders like that, and if you have come across, you should be really grateful and keep them close to you. And yeah, I mean, I think you and I are both blessed and lucky to have encountered those. But I think the key here goes to intentionally also following the right people. If you follow the right people, you will come across the right leaders, especially in your youth. When
Yeah.
looking for jobs or looking for opportunities or looking for mentors, look at the person. Don't focus on the money. Don't focus on titles. Don't look at the person. Look at the person's principles and values. And if those align with yours, then I think you're in a really good space.
Yeah, I agree with that. It actually leads me on to my next question, which is a bit of a twist on it. So I know you've been in leadership positions before, and the same can be said for me.
Yeah.
Curious, when did you realize you could be a leader, and what were some of the tools or principles you used to try and navigate that challenge?
Yeah. Wow. So for me, I think leadership doesn't come with a title.
Yep.
So I realized that I was a leader when I was making an impact on, firstly, my friends and my family in non-professional environments, whereby I would lead them through tough times, lead them through making, decisions in life, lead them through overcoming both good and bad obstacles. That's when I identified. When someone picked up the phone and called me and said, I need your guidance, I need your advice, I realized that, okay, maybe I am a leader in this element. And obviously, I acknowledge that and I continue to apply that philosophy in every other environment that I went into. So even when I was a junior employee, when a new employee joins and wants to learn something, I would make it my own personal initiative to go out and reach out to that person and check, are you okay? Do you need any help?
Yeah.
Yes, I might still be new, but let me share the little bit I know with you. And I think as you stay longer in a company or an environment, that influence grows, right? Because the more you know, if you're so used to sharing, the more you will share.
Yep.
And I think influence grows through impact. And for me, my leadership impact has become a title today, purely because I'm always willing to give without expecting anything back in return. And I derive joy from helping and seeing my colleagues thrive.
Yeah.
So winning alone for me is boring. I did a lot of individual sports and I've achieved a lot of things on my own. But I find more joy in being a part of someone else's win. Whether I'm acknowledged or not, I don't, but I derive joy in seeing other people win. So
Well,
yeah, that was what helped me identify that I'm a leader. And yourself?
that's so cool, T. Yeah, that's very cool. I think, yeah, the same way. I must be honest. I never had the opportunity to get a title at school to be in a leadership position. Deservedly so. And but I found myself in these informal situations where, I ended up taking the lead purely because I was willing to try. And often I found there was a vacuum of leadership around me. And the penny dropped for me where I was like, well, if I don't do it, no one is going to do it. So
100%.
that was when my identity as a leader started to get forged. Um, and then, in my career, through natural progression of as you become more senior, naturally you have more junior people underneath you. So that gives you the
Yeah,
opportunity to lead them in a certain way.
yeah,
But
yeah.
even leading people of the same rank as you, like I say, it's just that principle of taking the first step. So if I had to consolidate it into two principles for me, it's being willing to take responsibility and being willing to go first. Those are two things that I find separates leaders from followers.
Mm,
When you're in those settings where people are generally uncomfortable, awkward, they feel like they're under scrutiny, that is
yeah,
where leaders will say, okay, I'll go first.
yeah.
And I'll give you a great example of this. So at my company where I did my articles, EY has this first year event called EY Africa, where they take all the first years around the continent and put them in the same location for a big week of training and just socializing and everything. And it's really cool. So we get split up into groups, into teams. I'm in a team with, I don't know, maybe 14 other people, and I'm basically the youngest person there. And when it comes time to select a team leader, no one wants to do it. And obviously, people are self-conscious, they're worried about failure. I had all of those feelings that they had, but I saw in the conversation that no one was going to volunteer. So I realized, well, yeah, if no one's going to do it, I might as well do it.
100%.
And so I did it, and I had to go on stage in front of thousands of people and speak. And I was not a public speaker at school. I wasn't a leader at school. Public speaking terrified me at that point, which is ironic because now we're doing a freaking podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Same, same.
but yeah, so I go on stage, my legs are shaking, I speak. Everyone thinks I'm super cool as a cucumber, but inside I want to throw up. And
Yeah.
after that, I got this label as being the guy who was willing to speak at public events and willing to be the team leader and stuff like that. People just assumed I enjoyed it because I was willing to do it. But I just saw that there was a need, there was a vacuum. And then through this like cycle of try it, do it, things kind of work out all right. Now you associate yourself with being a leader. And that's like the journey, you know? So
Wow.
that's
Wow.
my
And
experience.
like, I like what you spoke about there, right? Because like leading doesn't always mean that you know what you're doing.
Yep.
It just means that you have the courage to go first, to take accountability, and to fail if it doesn't
Mm,
work.
yeah.
Um, and like you said, that's what separates followers from leaders.
Most of the
So
time, you don't know what you're doing as a leader
yeah, yeah,
because leaders don't get the easy tasks. Leaders generally get the hard things to do because if it was easy, everyone would be willing to do it.
100%,
You know?
100%. And I think that's why leadership ends up becoming a principles and values based task,
Yep.
because the task at hand you can always get skills for, right? I think skills are one thing that's easy to get, but if you don't have the correct principles and values, then you execute in a way that might not necessarily keep your followers, and number two, might not necessarily keep your followers happy and develop them. So I like how you spoke about that, right? Because yeah, you don't always know what you're doing, but with experience and with the refinement of values and principles that allow for you to lead in a certain way for the common goal of everyone,
Yeah.
do you then get more experience and power to take on anything, even things you don't know, right? You can take on things you don't know because you've got the principles and values set, the
Yeah.
skills you find along the way, and the know-how as well.
And I would argue that the best kind of team or organization is one that is made up of a group of leaders.
Mhm.
Like, yes, you might have one person who's taking responsibility for the broader picture, but the best high performing team is one that is made up of leaders.
100%. 100%. Because everyone leads themselves, right? At the end of the day,
Yep.
you have to lead yourself. And yes, there may be one leader, but that leader is supposed to teach the message on how to lead yourself in the best way possible
Yep.
for the common goal.
Which leads me into my next question, which I think is a very good one. What advice would you give to people who don't necessarily look at themselves as leaders in terms of how they can become better leaders for others, better leaders for themselves?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Leadership is not a title.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Start leading where you're not seen. And through that, you'll make an impact. And one day the title will then come.
That
That's
was a
just what I believe.
that was a gold thing. Start leading where it's not seen. Very well
Yeah.
said. Very well said.
I think that's I can't elaborate more than that. Do it where you won't get any return. The person appreciating it will say thank you, and that's enough to
Yeah,
get your momentum going.
love that answer.
And yourself?
I'm just gonna add some extra sauce to the thing that you just said because that was so good. There's a great book which I talk about all the time, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. The cool thing about the book is that it's basically broken down into two sections: private victories and public victories. And
Wow.
so private victories is basically being a proactive individual,
Yeah.
beginning with the end in mind. And then there's a third one that I don't remember. But it's basically saying if you want to win outside in the world, you need to win internally first. And leadership is like that as well, like you were saying. Lead in the moments when no one else is depending on you so that you can do that when they are depending on you.
Yeah.
I would also say give yourself a bit of credit because there's a chance that you've taken the lead before and you just didn't realize you were doing that.
100%.
There's this perspective, or not perspective, perception of leaders from the outside that they just these like superheroes who know exactly what they're doing, like we've already touched on. They're
Yeah.
talented, they're the best performers. Sometimes high performers are not the best leaders
Yeah.
because they might be talented in a way that makes them assume it's just easy for everybody else to do the thing.
Yes. 100%.
So, like the best leaders are often the people who sucked at some point in their lives and they had to grind to become what they
Yeah.
are. And they can look at others and be like, I know what it's like. And I promise you could get there as well.
Yeah.
So,
And I think just to add on to that as well, I think the best leaders are also really good listeners, right?
all said.
Because I think as a leader, you also need to uh sense the energy or the temperature of your team,
Yeah.
and through that adjust your leadership style. Whether it's stepping forward or stepping back or empowering someone else to take the lead who might be stronger than you in certain elements. So I think it's like a chess game, right?
Yeah.
Of scanning your environment and then making decisions that best suit the environment, not your title, the environment and the progression towards the common goal.
Yeah. 100%. Because titles don't necessarily give authority. Respect
Yeah,
does.
100%.
The only way to get respect is to earn it.
Yeah,
There's no cheating
yeah,
that process.
yeah. So well said. So well said.
So that's my last question. You have anything else you want to touch on?
From my side, no. Yeah, I think that was a very
Short and sweet.
conclusive, intense, straight to the point session. And yeah, I mean, I learned a lot about myself in this session as well, right? But I think just to round it up, I think what we both identified in this session is that leadership is about serving. It's about serving others and the greater goal. Not to say that you put yourself last, but you put others first to put yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. And lead because you see there's a need for it, not because
Yeah,
you want to get credit or you want to get a claim or anything like that. Because if that's why you want to do it, you're probably not going to be a good leader.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I guess we can wrap it up right there. So Alex,
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you for another fantastic episode. Um, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to the channel and give us a like, drop a comment below on the video. We really do check it out. And if you have any questions or topics that you want us to discuss, please leave a comment and we'll check it out. Thanks, everybody.